Today's show is brought to you by Hopsterette.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Peterball family farm, Hopsterette.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsterette.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsterette.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsterette.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
How much yeast to pitch for small batch brewing, filling CO2 cylinders at home, longevity of high-tech brewing equipment, and proper preparation for your brew day. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 313. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, joined as always by my co-host. First, he is the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, hola.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien. Yeah. You always get a nice and comfortable response from let me start fading that out.
Thank you.
I know you hate it. You know what though? I've gotten more feedback in the last several months of people going like, I like it letting it linger. I could tell it bothers Todd. I get feedback about that, and I get feedback. I guess one episode I talked about my bushy eyebrows. I've been getting feedback about maintaining my eyebrows, and bald men have been reaching out for support. I think we might start a homebrew club, bald brewers or something. I don't know. But,
oh gosh, I'll be excluded, won't
I? You, both of you. And James is no, shut up enough, because every time you complain about your headache, it's a little thin. But you have it though. I in our group chat, there was a photo from our trip. We went to Kansas City together, the three of us, in 2019. Great trip. I had a photo memory pop up, and I go, guys, look at this picture of me. It was like when we were at we were at KC Beer, which. Yeah. Let me segue real quick away from my already digression. They just installed a beautiful tower from CM Becker International with V10 faucets. It's an incredible installation. If you're in Kansas City, KC Beer is already worth your time because it's nothing but delicious German beers. They are good at what they do. But also now they've got an incredibly authentic German tower with incredibly authentic German faucets. So it's all...
You can actually see it on cmbecker.com.
Oh, that is true, in the customer showcase section.
Yep.
That's right. You can, Todd. Good point. But there's a photo of us. I'm sitting like next to Rob, and James and Todd are across the table, and you can see the monkey butt of my back of my head. and I sent it to the group chat like, guys, why didn't y'all tell me back then? And James was like, it would have been rude. Like which makes me even more impressed that Todd never said anything about the balding going on the back of my head. I always knew the front thinning. Like, that's easy to see. Todd, how could you?
I think it's funny because I think my wife baldness bothers my wife.
Oh, I know.
But it doesn't bother me at all. Like, if I lost all my hair tomorrow, it wouldn't bother me.
No. It's not that it bothers me. I'm impressed. Listen, I've had you call me some really thoughtful, creative things.
Well, no, but it does bother you.
Oh, I know, but so how come you never brought it up? My point is, in that picture, it is obvious that I need to start shaving my head. This was in December 2019, and you've never mentioned
because I didn't notice.
Oh, thank God! You would have been brutal.
I didn't notice. I don't notice. If you hadn't mentioned to me that you were losing your hair, I would never notice.
James, I am in the middle of winter weight and fit, Josh. And this trip, Todd did everything he could to make me feel fat. He kept like oinking at me as I was getting seconds. One meal I did get thirds, but he was, and then I made some comment about my jeans being tight and goes, "Yeah, dude, you're fat." So today I'm fasting. I mean, it didn't affect me.
My whole point was you work out all the time, so you would think you'd be real skinny.
That is what you said.
I'm just saying, when you hit 55-year-old Josh, like I'm 55 years old, you're gonna, after you've stopped working out. Yep, it's gonna.
I'm flattered that you think I'm gonna be a 55-year-old Josh. That's nice of you. I do have some small talk, and we've got a loaded show. We got 4 questions, a bunch of voicemails, and we got feedback. So let me get into it. Todd worked me to death, friends, on this last trip.
I have never seen him work so hard in my life.
We filmed for damn near 13 hours, not recording 13 hours worth, but setting up all the stuff. I had a teaser at Instagram.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. We filmed 3 videos over the course of 2 days, and the first video on Tuesday we started recording at a little bit after 7 a.m. and then we ended like at 7:30, wasn't it, that night?
Yeah,
with really 20-minute breaks every now and then for food. And when I tried to take a 30-minute break for food, Todd cracked that whip. But that on Tuesday,
we had stuff to do. I mean, if I hadn't cracked the whip, we would have been working till 9, right?
That is true. I was talking with your wife. I am a black belt in small talk. But yes, so Tuesday's filming all day was because Todd built a wedding bar. We've been talking about this wedding article for weeks. We've been getting y'all's photos. I've absolutely loved. Some of y'all have had incredibly creative setups. Some people have had the most simple ones up to very elaborate, sophisticated ones. We love them all. It's been cool seeing the different ways people have implemented serving craft beer at their wedding or event. I've enjoyed that. So Todd had this idea of, let's show people on YouTube how straightforward it is to build your own station, and then using these event kits that we're coming out with at kegconnection.com for the actual dispensing side of it. So we put a lot of work and effort. Todd actually got some what's the right word? Reclaimed wood? What would you call it? Like you went to your buddy's farm or ranch and he let you use barn wood from like an old barn of theirs for this event, right? For this build for the event.
Yeah, he's got a very old barn, and inside that barn he's got wood that came from all over his ranch when they've done things. And I just went in there, and he had some kind of tannish, some that was kind of tannish painted, and some that was kind of a very light red, and they just look cool, I thought, contrasting with each other. So we did it. Well, you should post a photograph of it.
I should
on the notes.
I will. I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll put the. Did you actually? I only was recording with the cinema camera. I didn't hardly take any photos during.
I took photos.
Okay, send them to me, and I'll put them in the show notes, and I'll put them at Instagram. You can always follow us if you do Instagram. Todd and James don't really, or James literally doesn't. You're off the grid. I've gone over that before. You're gone. Yeah. But Todd has an Instagram, and I tag him all the time, trolling him, and that's how I know he doesn't use it.
There it is.
That's a great picture of it.
Yeah. So I'll send that to you.
Please do. So yeah, we filmed that on Tuesday. Then yesterday, Wednesday, we filmed shorter videos. One on updating the how to install a shank into a fridge and convert a fridge into a kegerator. Kegconnection.com, was it 13 years ago, Todd published that animated video, and it's very dated in regards to it's 3x4 or 4x3, whatever the format is. It's square video back when people had square TVs, and the animation's beautiful. Our buddy Steve Milligan, I believe was his last name, did it for us. I think he still does animation, but
Yeah, and then we had the wrong, like we were recommending the wrong size hole saw, and we can't really change anything on it. It's very dated.
Very dated, but also very well consumed. So we just thought we're going to update it. So that's one of the videos that we updated. And then Todd also, yesterday we did a film. What was this? Wait, what were the two that we filmed?
So it was the day before yesterday. But
no,
yeah,
we filmed two on Tuesday. That's right.
Yeah,
it was so late.
Yeah.
We filmed how to build a tower-based serving station for a wedding or an event. That is right. So we got 3 videos coming down the pipeline. Todd's priority is that wedding serving station, the one with the shank kit. So that'll publish out very soon. Todd's made me commit to that. I'm not going to put a date, but next week, look for that. And then the other 2.
Oh, I thought it was going to be done tomorrow.
Oh my God. It could be if you weren't okay. Wedding build scene 18, take 20. Because I don't know if you checked our files, you took a lot of takes on some of those takes on some of those scenes. So anyway,
you're a picky director. What can I say?
I was, and I was getting moody. You could tell I was hungry some of the time. And then he made fat jokes because I would be hangry, and he'd be like, "God, you got some food in you. You're really acting up, Josh." Anyway, so we did the film day. I took home a recipe for I'm going to try doing a pressure pills like Mr. Carlson. You're my inspiration for 2023. So I made very simple. I think it's actually, I got it from you, 9 pounds of pills and malt and a half a pound of Cara pills. And then I'm using Mount Hood because we had it. Your recipe, I think, called for Middle Fruit or Tradition. And I didn't want to take there's a bag of like that German Select I didn't want to take from you. So I just took more Mount Hood. I used that Mount Hood in my last Kolsch and it turned out great. It's a decent substitute from what I've read for the Mittelfruit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good hop.
And we had some extra cable car. I'm going to try cable car. I think I'll let y'all know how it turns out and bring y'all some. I'm going to brew a 10-gallon batch. Pop, I brought that home. I didn't pester him. He's been dealing with cedar fever lately, like bad. So I didn't want to, hey, Dad, when do you want to brew? I brought this stuff home. But we'll probably brew together this weekend or next, get that pressure pills in there. I'm looking forward to it. And because I can do it. Cable car is already kind of friendly to warmer temps. It's a lager yeast, but it was for steam beer. So it'd already be.
Oh yeah, it'll go. It's real versatile. You can use it either way.
Yeah, and making this relevant to our Q&A format, a guy had written in to help. I had already helped him, but James, you can confirm. He said he was going to do a pressure pills, and he asked about diacetyl rest, and I reassured him because you're already in that range for primary, you don't got to do anything. It's just right, exactly. So that's my favorite part is I'm going to be doing a lager and not having to worry because I know I'd forget it. I'd be like, oh crap, diacetyl rest was crap, and then I'd have butterbeer or something. So.
Yeah, haven't we all?
Haven't we all? So yeah, I'm going to be doing a pressure pills. Todd, you're about to go out of town in a couple weeks. So you won't be on in 2 weeks, that episode. You're going with your wife on an anniversary trip. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that's next Friday.
Yeah, cruise. I don't know. Actually, don't we leave? I think I leave
Friday.
A week from tomorrow. Yeah.
The 13th. Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, yeah. Huh. So I will be on the one next week.
Yes, but the following week you will not. In 2 weeks.
I didn't think I was going to be on the one next week for some reason.
You don't have to be. James and I can hold it down, dude, like we did last week.
Okay.
And I know you didn't listen because I called you some awful things on last week's episode, and you didn't bring it up at all. So we film day, pressure pills. Oh, our friends at Hops Direct, obviously they supply all the hops for our Trub Club recipes, and they right now, they don't want me to give away the deal specifically because they're trying to grow their newsletter. So go to hopsdirect.com, sign up for their newsletter because they have a fantastic 22% off coupon code that's good for over 20 hop varieties now through January 18th. Todd, you got it. You're on the newsletter. I'm on the newsletter. So It's working. If you go sign up at hopsdirect.com, their newsletter is usually a pop-up, but there's also a sign up near the bottom. You can go put your name on the email list. I promise you, Hops Direct is like us, very small business, family owned. and we don't have the time to just spam your inbox with info. So it's not going to be, you're not going to be inundated with a bunch of spam or stuff that you don't like. If you're looking to get hops affordably and you want the best hops selection around, go sign up for their newsletter. Like I said, they have right now an exclusive 22% off coupon code, which then I like how you're petting Gracie down there. The look on her face.
I know.
Pure bliss.
That's a happy dog.
That is a happy dog.
Gee, I wonder what she'd be like if she was spoiled.
And then,
Todd's always saying that.
yeah.
Well, it's like, I sure hope you don't ever spoil that dog.
Yeah. And then last but not least, before we get into the listener feedback, boom, it's on the screen. Todd and James don't have it. But this month, for Trub Club, we're brewing the Amber Ale. It's a Fat Tire clone recipe. It's going out, like I said, with hops from Hops Direct. We're using Willamette on this one. And the strain of yeast from our friends at Imperial House. It's a solid strain. It will do you well. This Fat Tire is, it's an amber ale, so it's not an alt, but it's a very close, good, satisfactory, I remember, James, you haven't had Fat Tire in forever, and you tried it, and you're like, dang, that's not clear.
Yeah, I forgot how good it was.
Right? It's one of those introductory craft beers for a lot of people my age and older, where depending on your region of the country, like in Texas, Shiner Bock and Real Ale, and maybe in the Northeast or east side of the country, it was Yingling or whatever. And, I think Fat Tire, though, has been pretty universal for a lot of people's craft beer experience, where you go to a sports bar, you're like, oh, I'll try that one. And boom, life changes. Fat Tire on draft at the brewery is still one of my favorite memories. I was with Todd many years ago.
That's not true.
What do you mean?
It wasn't on draft.
How did we had it in their
You got it off the line,
Oh,
didn't you?
We got it
guys,
off
my
the
bad.
line, like
I'm
Laverne
sorry.
and
That's
Shirley
right.
here.
Doing
You
it
have the
our
glove
way.
to.
Yeah, I was Schlemizel, he was Schlemazel, and off the
Well, that Schlotz, isn't that what they called it? Schlotz Brewery.
Schlotz Brewery. That's right. It was incredible. Thanks for the Laverne and Shirley reference. My dad will appreciate that, because Todd and I were just talking about. I was singing the intro, and he goes, "Oh my God, are you singing Laverne and Shirley?"
I was like, how would you even know that show?
My mom put me down for naps to Laverne and Shirley when I was a kid, to reruns, obviously. But anyway, so let me put it back on the screen. Boom. If you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, you can come brew with us. January is a perfect way, or this kit in January is the perfect way to start off the year. We're going strong. We're letting members, we're shipping out recipes the last Monday of every month. We're committing to that. And we're starting to leak out our planned recipes. We're getting more involvement. We want people to know, not be such a mystery, because we know some people, they like this month with this recipe, we're going to gain some, we're going to lose some. Every month people are kind of waiting for it, and I don't want them to get charged before they know what it is. So I'm trying to give as much info as possible. We're very transparent here. We're trying to make the club as welcoming and friendly as possible. So, and with that, I'm always open to y'all's feedback if you are in the Trub Club. But again, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Come brew with us. Join our club. We sincerely appreciate your support at whatever level, from the $1 guys all the way up to the $150 guys that are getting 15-gallon recipes. So we greatly appreciate y'all. I believe that is the last bit of small talk that I have planned out. So it's time for listener feedback. Oh, I love it when I can put that bumper. This week's listener feedback is from our buddy Dan, and he called in about etching into stainless steel.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year. I was just listening to your last episode about etching into stainless steel. I actually did that using vinegar, salt, and a 9-volt battery and a Q-tip. And I got some stencils with numbers off of Amazon to trace out gallon markings. So it did that way, and I measured the gallons in the kettle with a wooden stick, and as I poured in gallons, I would mark the stick so that I knew where to mark on the side of the pot. My only other suggestion for it is just to make sure if you're using any other accessories in the pot, like a whirlpool arm or something, make sure it's all in there so your volumes are totally accurate as to space taken up by other things. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Dan, thank you for the feedback. Yeah, a lot of people called in or texted in for the most part, thinking, I never thought of that. I could get a kettle that's completely blank and just do this myself, like volume markings and stuff. I got a lot of people saying, oh, I just put markings on my mash paddle. I stick it in there and I start filling up stuff. And I didn't
That's a great idea,
right?
actually.
People do that. And then I didn't think about it, though. There is going to be a little bit of displacement when you do it that way. But as long as you're doing it consistently the same, when you're putting in your liquid and you have the mash paddle in there, then right? Or when you take the grains out and you need to get to volume for your boil, you put the mash paddle in, that accounts for the displacement, and then boom, now your markings are correct. But yeah, we appreciate all the feedback about the markings and the etching and all that. And I forgot to link to that handheld one that that you had talked about on that episode, James, in the show notes, but I'll get that from you and we'll link to it. Like you had said last week, there is a ton of different ways for people to accomplish this and get it done and not have to break the bank. So this is
if Josh ever says he's going to link to something and he doesn't, it's tburns@kegconnection.com. Just let me know. I'll let him know. Yeah.
Or just email me directly at joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. But
yeah. Good luck with that.
This is a great time to remind you if and when you leave us a voicemail, whether it's feedback or a question, and we use it on a future episode, you do get a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Email Todd and let him know that I am very responsive when y'all leave voicemails to text y'all and say, hey, I got a $25 gift card for you. It's Todd's money. So anyways, if you're going to leave feedback, and also give us those 5-star reviews or all the others, hit that smash that like button, all that. So this week we do got 4 questions. We're starting off the first one with a text message from our buddy Adam. And he wrote, I understand imperial yeast pouches are intended for 5 gallons. Should I use the entire pouch for a half batch? Is that considered overpitching? What is overpitching? Cheers, bro. Adam, I am going to throw this to James because I always just I always brew in 5 or 10 gallon batches, or if I'm up there with y'all, 15. And because I know those pouches are basically for 5 gallons, I'm like, I'm doing a 5, I'm pitching 1. I'm doing a 10, I'm pitching 2. I'm doing 1 on the brow tag and it's going to be 15, I'm pitching 3. Do y'all use a yeast calculator, James, or are you just going off the pouches?
Yeah, I just kind of go off the pouches. That's a tricky thing because there's a lot of variables. That's why using a calculator, if you're in question for doing something like that, a yeast pitch calculator is a really good tool. Because when you go in to plug those numbers in, like for our brewer's friend, you put it the date of the yeast was manufactured, the cell count, how many billions of cells are in there. And I think some of the calculators even have yeast profiles already in there.
They do.
Then you took the starter size. It asks, it'll walk you through all the questions. It'll tell you whether you're in the right range or if you need to do a starter for more or for less. It's kind of funny because if you underpitch, you can create off flavors. If you overpitch, and it's a lot easier to underpitch than it is to overpitch, especially if you're doing lagers. But if you think about it this way, there's only so much oxygen for the yeast to breathe as they eat the sugars. So if you just really overpitch, what they're going to do is they're going to get in there and they're just going to consume all the sugars too fast. Then there's not enough. And while they're doing that, they're going to consume all the oxygen. There's nothing left. So then they start eating each other up. And then that creates the cell walls pop, and it can create like a sink taste, vegetable taste. There's a lot of off flavors that can be done from overpitching as well as underpitching. And so I've never run into that. And, when I was thinking about this question, when we were talking about doing the Kolsch and I was doing just pumping right onto the yeast cake. And if you remember, we got to the 5th batch and I could taste a difference in the way it tasted.
Yep. And
we had thought maybe it was mutations in the yeast, but I think maybe it was it was way overpitched on the amount of yeast that per given batch size, and we were getting off flavors as a result. So if you do pitch over used yeast, You probably want to manage some of that by pulling some of that trub off your if you're in a conical, pull off some of that trub off the valve along with a little bit of yeast, because it is possible to overpitch, especially if it's an ale or at room temperature. It's a little harder to do with a lager because you're fermenting under cooler temps,
slower and cooler.
Yeah, and you almost have to double the amount for lagers if you're fermenting at 50 degrees, 48 to 50 degrees, because it's just so much slower process than at room temp. But it definitely is a consideration.
So before I get to the blunt part of it, Todd, I remember y'all did a yeast calculation on a dry yeast one time, and you ended up on was it 17-gallon batch or whatever, pitching like 4 or 5 or 6 based off their calculator, right?
And I think that was the Kolsch.
It was from Lallemand.
It was actually 8.
And I'm going to throw them under the bus because I've emailed them twice now asking them about that, and I've gotten no response. So I don't know the answer because I can't get them to answer me.
Answer
me.
Well, explain the situation, and then we'll pester them.
Okay. I basically looked at a calculator trying to decide how much to pitch, and it said you need 8 for this, 17.5-gallon batch I was doing. And I was like, 8? That seems just nuts to me. But I double-checked all the numbers several times and actually went to their website and did their calculator, and that's what it said. So I used 8. It was way too much, as I thought it would be. And the next time I brewed it, I think I used maybe 5
I think you used
instead
5.
of 4.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fast. So I could have definitely done 4 and been fine. So I think that they've got their stats wrong on that particular yeast. That's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
was that last Kolsch you and Bauman did?
The last one me and Bauman did, that's when I used
that was so good.
I was going to say, it did turn out good, though. You said it was still too much. Why, are you saying that because it was still so vigorous?
So fast. I mean, it fermented so fast. It never cleared up 100% either. I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
It actually can cause cloudy beer if it ferments too quick.
It was great. I'll tell you this. There were a couple of Germans at the wedding, and everybody at the wedding was like, "Oh my God, this is a beautiful beer. It tastes so good." Everybody's going on. And I asked the German guy, and he was from Munich. He wasn't from Cologne, but I said, "What do you think about the Kolsch?" He goes, "Oh, this Kolsch is perfect. It's so good. Not quite as clear as a Kolsch should be, but yeah." And he's not even a brewer. He just immediately noticed. Nobody else noticed except for the German, of course. And he noticed that it was not 100% clear. And of course I noticed.
Did that bother you?
It tasted great. Yeah, it does bother me.
I knew it did because he poured me one on Tuesday, and I was already cranky all day from working. And the first thing I said was, so it didn't clear up that much, did it? But and I could see it on his face how much. But
and I beat him to a pulp. His jiu-jitsu didn't help him. So here's the thing on it, though. The other thing is the other lesson I've learned for the second time now, and this might be helpful to everybody. If you go from your fermenter, we've got a big spike fermenter, and it's temperature controlled. If you go from that into a keg and then you put it in your keezer, it clears up after a while and it pours great. Not if you transport it, though.
Yeah.
The Kolsch was much better than the last beer that I transported. The problem is if your dip tube almost never goes all the way to the bottom. It usually has a little bit above the bottom, and whatever's on the bottom shakes up when you transport it. So I am saying right now, I will never do that again on a beer that I know I'm going to transport from now on. Even if I do it in there and I can transfer it directly to the keg, and I know it's a pain in the you-know-what, but I'm going to put it in a glass carboy and do a secondary in my fridge and then take it into the keg.
Right. Or like you said, like the wedding beer, the German probably knew this, and you didn't explain yourself. It's a fun time, and it was delicious. Ultimately, that's all that matters. It was, and it is. I had some Tuesday.
And it wasn't very cloudy.
No, even Tuesday it wasn't. It wasn't crystal clear. But transporting, you didn't even have a full 24 hours between getting it cold and then the party, the wedding. So like you had
yeah.
all the factors against you, and and so it could have been much worse than it ended up being. It was already, as clear as can be.
No, because I left it I put it on ice and left it overnight, so it had about 30 hours.
Okay,
and it was ice cold. I mean, it was 32 degrees, so it settled back down pretty well. Yeah.
So that's why for Christmas, before I left town for that trip, the anniversary trip with my wife, I kegged that Kolsch that Friday, and when we went to drop off the girls, I put it in my dad's fridge so that it had Friday all the way through the next Friday till Saturday, Christmas Eve. That made all the difference, because one time I brought beer from my house and it was like only a 1.5 days worth of sitting, and it didn't clear. It was still affected from the transporting and the temperature change and all that. I think that was my excuse for that beer. This Kolsch for Christmas turned out pretty, by Christmas Day especially, pretty damn crystal clear. It was incredible. And now serving off it's my favorite Kolsch that I think I've brewed, and at least in a long time. It just has it's like like yours. It just it has that cloud finish to it. That's all I ever want from that little bit of biscuit and cloud.
So good. That real nice floral.
And I think I'm a fan of the dry better. Like the one you and Bauman did for the wedding is drier than the one I brewed and what I usually brew. But I think next time maybe I'll let it go. Or I say let it go. I didn't stop mine. You stopped yours.
I did stop it. It was too low. Yeah.
But it was great. The finish is incredible.
Yeah, it really
it was really good.
It is so good. And it's on tap. And he's doing dry-ish January. So and I'm gonna be up there for a whole week while you're out of town. This is great. This is great. When he was there,
I gotta find that lock for that freezer.
Hey, you didn't drink, and so I hardly drank. I had that cup of Kolsch. I feel weird when you're dry and I'm there next to you, like, oh, look to do. So I didn't smoke a cigar.
Can you imagine how obnoxious I would be
if I was doing dry any month?
Yeah, and I wasn't.
I know.
Oh my gosh. I'd get sloshed next to you. Mock you the whole
on
time.
Principle.
You know I would.
Oh, I know you would. So wrapping up Adam's text, James, would you only do a half a pouch for a 2.5 gallon batch, or would you feel comfortable doing the whole pouch?
Well, if the yeast is fairly old, let's say it's a month or so old, then I'll probably do the full pouch. But if you got a good fresh, and if it's good fresh imperial pouch, shake it up really good, get it mixed up real good, and save half. I would probably do that with imperial. Everybody else, I'd just pitch the whole thing.
Perfect. And that's a good point. Context is important. You're right. If it lost some cells to a 6 weeks or whatever the manufacturing day was, then yeah, pitch the whole thing. You're probably not, like you said, it is a lot harder, or it's a lot easier to underpitch than to overpitch. And so
I think it depends a lot on the style, like you were saying, James. Not just even lager and ale, but you'd have to look at the style too.
Yeah, also ABV. If you're doing a big batch of beer, and you do the whole pouch. Good because point. You have the sugars. Just make sure with any big beer that you oxygenate the wort enough for the yeast to complete their task and get the sugars ate, because everything's got to be in balance. If you have enough sugars, enough yeast cells for a given ABV, but not enough oxygen, then it's going to stall out. And coincidentally, it's all got to be in balance. You can't really if you're doing lager, it's going to be a lot harder to overpitch.
Oh yeah, if I was doing a lager, I'd just throw it all in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Context is king. And
what's the one that I think would be the Hefeweizen? That's the one that always just goes nuts.
Always.
Yeah.
They're not Stefan. What is their strain that's most popular we've used before? But yeah, it always goes.
Is it Kaiser?
No, Kaiser's their alt strain.
Okay, so you got Kaiser, Dieter, and Stefan.
Maybe Stefan is their wheat yeast. But either way, Todd's right. I mean, that one, that's the most vigorous fermentations I've ever seen, is when y'all have done wheat beers before using that. It is just like motor boating for days. Just
Stefan is the heavy.
Okay, yeah, that one, that's a workhorse, man. And I don't like the style, but dang, it's cool watching that go to town. Like Todd always has a blow off bucket, and it's just for it's incredible. It's incredible. But anyways, Adam, thank you so much for submitting the question. Again, a reminder, guys, when you text us or use the submit a question link at the top of homebrewhappyhour.com, you get a $15 gift card to kegconnection.com, or you leave us a voicemail and you're going to get a $25 gift card like our buddy Nate. Our second question of the show, Nate from Oregon left us a voicemail.
Hey, this is Nate from Oregon. I had a question about filling paintball tanks instead of using a standard 5-pound CO2 bottle from a draft system. I've had a couple of 5-pound CO2 bottles that I accidentally burned through over the course of a couple of weeks due to various leaks. And at $30 per exchange, that made me very sad. Would it make sense to invest in a paintball CO2 tank filler attachment for a 5-pound tank so that I could fill the smaller tanks at home? Then if there was a leak, I'd only lose what was in the paintball tank. I know there'd probably be some waste filling smaller tanks, but losing 20 ounces sounds better than losing 5 pounds in case of another surprise leak. For my limited research, it seems I would only need a paintball tank, an adapter for that smaller tank to paintball tank, a tank filling attachment, and a hanging scale to attach to the standard regulator. Obviously, either way, I need to fix the leaks, just thinking longer term. Does this make sense? Thanks you. And Josh is actually pretty great.
It's true. It is true. Nate, thanks for submitting the question. I love my favorite part of his question. It would only need, and then like an 8-part list. I would only need, it's not a bad idea. And his thought process is very similar to mine, where it's like, I'm going to make no offense, Nate, kind of a mountain out of a molehill, where like the real solution, he addressed it at the end, is get the leaks fixed, man. Like, you want to resolve where the leaks are, because that's the biggest issue with the system, is that you have a leak somewhere draining out your 5-pound. But with that being said, y'all filling station there at headquarters is what he's describing. You're using, I don't even know the size of those cylinders, and I'm not using it. That's why I wouldn't recommend any of this, Nate, because that stuff terrifies me. I am not going to fill my own at home. No, thank you.
You're probably not going to get it very full in a lot of cases. So
why is that?
Ours has a pump on it, so it's pumping the liquid over, and unless you have exactly the right temperature situation, so when we turn ours on and we transfer from a 35 or 50 gallon tank into a 20 ounce CO2, it never fills it to 20 ounces just by transferring over. At some point we have to pump it.
Oh, so that and I can't imagine that's meant for residential, so it's not probably an affordable piece of equipment.
It's and you got to. I mean, you got to be very, very, very careful. You don't want to explode a CO2 cylinder. That would be really, really bad. It would scare Josh terribly if you did that.
It would.
I mean, technically, it has a pressure relief valve, and the pressure relief valve should blow out first, which would also scare Josh a lot. But I mean, you're probably not going to be able to fill it all the way. So
listen, pal, you can't offend me, because the noise of filling that.
Oh no, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm being completely serious.
Oh yeah,
it would scare the living crap out of me.
The filling of it does. I take my tank over to Vilver. He verifies with you that it's okay to fill it for me. You check the date on it. It's okay. Okay, everybody's okay. We go back over to the filling station with Vilver, and he's just looking at me, talking like, "Oh yeah, get us," and then oh, every time I'm clenched butt, man, clenched butt. But anyways, James, this sounds like more something you would have done. James, back in the day, MacGyver James, he's like, I'm not going to spend $30 on a refill. I could do this. Or am I wrong? Is that not even something you would consider doing?
I wouldn't do that. I'm like you. The pressures creep me out. And this is definitely a Todd question.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it with, people do it with propane cylinders. They fill their little propane cylinders. I think it's illegal to do that. And usually when something's illegal, there's a reason behind it, like deaths or something at some point.
No way, bro. As the resident anarchist here, I say, do it. Deregulate. No, but not kidding. Nate, I think there's a lot of safety issues that you'd have to worry about that might not be worth it. You're probably a family man. You probably have a significant other, or you have someone who cares about you, Nate. Don't do it. But even if you did all this equipment, Todd, is that, I mean, all this stuff's not cheap, right? The weighing part, the hanging scale, all that stuff adds up to where it's just like, again, find the leak, get that resolved, save the headache of that. And most cities, I mean, maybe I'm just spoiled living in Central Texas. 20 ounces are cheap to fill in my area. And a couple of sporting goods stores fill them. And it's like right now they went up, but it's like $15 or no, 12, or it's like 15 after tax, which I know doesn't seem cheap, but that's an easy fill. And if your system doesn't have a leak and you're only using it to dispense, you'll get a lot of 5-gallon kegs out of that 20 ounce. So I have a 20 ounce to spare with that old mini regulator that y'all used to do, James. And that's my backup. If my 5 pounds out, I got to take it up to y'all on the next trip. Boom, put up the 20 ounce and we're good to go. My pop, I think, has a 20 ounce at his house too. They're good to have as backups. Also, a backup 5 pound is good to have as a backup. We between my pop and I think we have 3 or 4 5 pounds now. And Todd has an ungodly amount of backups at the barn. I've seen them out in the garage, and at headquarters too. Y'all have just an obscene amount of backups.
Yeah, most of the ones we have here have dip tubes in them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Why?
Because you have to have a dip tube to fill from them. Because it's a liquid and you fill from the bottom.
Okay. And is that something that you purchased or y'all retrofitted that?
Well, I went to when I had last time I had them all time before last when I had them all hydro tested. Gosh, it was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I had them add dip tubes to all of our large 35, and most of them are 35 pound, and then we have a 50 pound, and we have dip tubes in all of them.
Right. Okay. So that would be something else, some context for Nate needing. If you can't just take your standard old 5 pound.
People just turn them upside down.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's everything about this just sounds terrible to me at the home.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't do it. I mean, I would not recommend somebody fill one in their home. I mean, that would be an enormous liability for me to recommend that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of while we're on the topic of this, if you are going to fill it or take it to get filled, because we don't recommend you doing it at home, what are, you want the tank as cold as possible. Doesn't that help with transferring of the gas or of the liquid?
It helps us because our pump is probably not as good as some of the commercial filling places. So with ours, it really helps if the cylinder itself is cold. In the middle of the summer, if somebody brings one in and it's hot, they had it in their trunk or something, I'm like, we're not going to be able to fill this. It just won't. We can't get it to transfer over. So a lot of times we'll put it in the fridge for a while and let it cool down, and then we'll transfer.
And then also, to wrap it up, true or false, the cylinder needs to be completely emptied before you get it filled.
No, a lot of times they're not empty.
Okay. I've heard both, or I've read on the internet both.
Well, okay. I see what you're saying. Here's the problem. You know what the tear weight is, so you can fill from the tear weight, but you don't necessarily absolutely positively know what the valve weighs. So, if you have the same brand cylinder with the same valve, then you know what it all weighs, and you can take that off. But yeah, I mean, the problem is the weight of the valve.
Okay.
So most of the time when people bring us a CO2 cylinder, it's so close to being empty that we'll purge it. And what it does when you purge is it cools it down.
Oh, good point. So that accomplishes a couple things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So wrapping up, Nate, thank you so much for submitting that voicemail. Another reminder, because I'd be remiss if I didn't. When you leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107, you get a $25 gift card to catconnection.com. Have I mentioned that on this episode? Moving on, our third question is from our buddy Blake, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And Blake wrote, "Hiya, guys. Found your podcast on YouTube after finding your G30 videos." He's talking about your unboxing video specifically, James. Cool. I have enjoyed learning from you, and I just joined your Patreon. I am currently an extract brewer looking to move into all grain. hence why I was looking up Grainfather vids. It's pricey and loaded with tech, which brings me to this question. Will this product ever become obsolete if Grainfather went under or stopped supporting their tech? One of my biggest fears buying new tech is that it all seems to have a shelf life based on software support from the company, not necessarily based on the potential longevity of the hardware. I don't want to invest $1,000 just to have this become a very large paperweight in the future. Thanks, Blake. It's a valid concern for anyone living in 2023. You buy tech. How many times have I sworn, or you guys sworn, that Todd and I use Pixels, a very superior form of communication to James. But James uses that archaic Apple, whatever, like 90% of the market uses. And but people who use these phones swear after a couple of years that the updates make them slower, make them obsolete. And it's the company, the evil corporate men trying to get us to have to buy the new phone, right? Like these kinds of accusations span every industry that any kind of technology is involved in. So it's a very good question. I would say to answer his first, and then I'll take our conversation through a digression. The Grainfather products, as far as I know, someone can write in and correct me, they're not contingent on server activities or connectivity at all. That's a feature, not a necessarily function. Like I've had before where you can use the onboard touchscreen that comes with your unit, or I have the G40. I don't know if the G30 is a touchscreen. It's just the one y'all have is just buttons, right?
Oh yeah, it's old school.
But
analog.
Way, right. So analog buttons, or if the touchscreen's working, which it should be, you can just use it from that device. It doesn't have to be connected to anything except for power.
Yeah, because it actually, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have one that I had showed a guy how to. He bought one and showed him how to brew on it. He downloaded the app on his phone, and then the phone Bluetooth to the controller connected to his phone via Bluetooth in the app. So it's not like if y'all remember the Pico Brew machine, we actually had to go online to use the machine.
Yep.
And with the Grainfather, it just Bluetooth from that app already installed on your phone to the controller.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's totally different situation.
And even more basic than that, if your phone exploded in the sunlight or whatever during the middle of the brew day, you can always use that controller on the Grainfather as your interface. You don't have to use any additional tech. You don't have to use any of those nice features. Now you're paying all that money. That's why you're paying that money, is for those features. But if what's the parent company name? Bevy. If Bevy goes under tomorrow, and remember the Pico Brew announcement was pretty abrupt, right? It was like, hey, we're doing a round of investing, and then like 2 weeks later, oh yeah, we're actually going out of business. And if that happened overnight, your Grainfather is still going to be usable. It's not contingent on a server or software for operating at all. You're going to lose some features specifically, that are tied to that, like if their website servers go down, that whole community feature of loading recipes and whatever to your unit will be missing. But it as a kettle, it as a brewing machine won't be affected. I'm willing.
Right. You know what? I just looked. Pico Brew still the website that we used to access the machine. It's still up.
And I know that for Pico Brew specifically, I think it's called Pico Free. There are people who are making their own the containers that were kind of proprietary to Pico. I think they're 3D printing them so that people can keep using their Pico Brews, because those were expensive pieces of equipment. And you want to talk about a heavy paperweight. But yeah, for Nate's specific question about the Grainfather, the G30, I have the G40. I'm not concerned at all. That thing, as long as it doesn't have internal issues with the element, or I don't shatter the touchscreen or whatever I could do to damage the unit, assuming the unit's being well taken care of, I'm pretty confident I'll get a lot of use out of that. That's like, with any, as long as you have the 220 going to it, you're going to be good. Now, it brings up a good kind of thought that I had to digress, where technology can become obsolete, right? Like we still don't have a tilt, or any of those other kind of in fermentation hydrometers, the digital hydrometers, but I believe those are contingent on server access, aren't they? Or would that be the same case?
I think people have already written programs to run tilt that are outside of the system.
So it's probably the same thing. As long as you have some Bluetooth connectivity between it and a device like a phone or a tablet, then even if tilt went under, you'll still be able to use your tilt, is what you're saying.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I can't think of brewing tech then off the top of my head that would be like, now my whole brewing is done because this went under. Like if Brewer's Friend went under, we would just have to go back to paper handwriting our notes and using calculators to determine all of our numbers, but it wouldn't kill our brew day, right?
It'd be terrible, but yeah.
It would be terrible. I'm trying to think. Can you think of brew tech? The tilt was my only go-to, but we don't have one. So like with your Easy Dens, that doesn't rely on any connectivity besides Bluetooth to your phone. So that's
it's an app. I guess the app would still work. Yeah.
So. This is, you know what, we need a more technical or tech nerd.
I know. I think it's funny you're asking me.
I know. Well, you are. Todd, I call him Todd. Technology is hard burns, and I'm asking him the hard questions today about tech. You're right. We need to get. If you are savvy with brew tech, hit me up, Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com, so we can talk about technology and brewing, because it would be a fun topic to discuss a whole episode on, because I have a lot of presumptions that we know what happens when I make assumptions, don't we, Todd?
Yes.
I usually lose a $5 bet and I make an ass out of me. Not you and me, just me.
You haven't even mentioned me paying you, have you?
No, yeah, I didn't. He did pay up, James. The last bet of 2022 was Joshua Stubing, will not lose another $5 bet for the rest of the year. We made it in early October, and I held through because my strategy was to not bet at all. It was hard. It was very hard. And there was $55 worth of bets I would have won because he kept baiting me with easy ones. He was baiting me.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was the worst. But now I
had to get a second job.
Jerk. With it wrapping up, because I don't want to digress too much, but I think you don't gotta worry about with the G30, man.
Late.
Yeah, I know. That thing's gonna be good for a while, and even if they're not going anywhere, I think they're doing well, or as well as our industry's doing right now. But if they happen to just go out of business tomorrow, your G30 is not going to be affected by it. In fact, if they go out of business tomorrow, you get a G30 for pretty cheap in the next couple of weeks is what would end up happening. So on that fire sale. So not fingers crossed. I don't want them going out of business, but hey, pick up a cheap G30. I will say I've loved my dad. He really has been enjoying brewing on the G40, which is why I've been trying to tell him we need to get the brow tag installed. Because if he loves the G40 so much, electric brewing, he's going to absolutely lose it when we do a brew day on the brow tag. It's real. I'm air quoting. Don't get offended, audio only listeners. But it's real brewing. It's replicating the way craft brewing has been done in modern era for many, many, many years at micro, nano, even large scale breweries. It's my favorite form of brewing is on that brow tag. I need to get that installed. But if you don't have it, or you're an apartment brewer or whatever, the Grainfather line of products is fantastic. We love them. They've sponsored the show. They don't currently, but we still don't mind telling everyone that they're fantastic people and they make fantastic products. So with that question, we come to our fourth and final question. It's another voicemail, this time from Down Under. Sorry for that. That was a terrible impression. It's our buddy Andy.
Particularly bad.
That was so bad. It's our buddy Andy from Brisbane, Queensland.
Hey, this is Andy calling from Brisbane in Queensland again. Still enjoying the show. Keep up the good work. I just had a question about long mash duration. So quite often when I set up for brewing, I'm ready the night before, and in the morning I just get up, turn the power on, heat everything up, and get started. But I'm just thinking if I could get the mash to temperature in the evening, get it up to 70 degrees, 67 degrees, switch everything off overnight. Obviously, it's gradually going to cool down. Maybe might even drop to 50 or whatever. But in the morning, it would be ready to go. You could bring it back up to temp and then pull the grain out and bring it up to boil. This is obviously brew in a bag. So yeah, just wondering whether anyone's had any experience with that. I guess you're going to get a lot of those lower, those lower mash temperature sugars. So you're going to get, a different mash profile. But, hopefully still end up, as I understand it, maybe would end up with a drier beer, and that's usually something I'm kind of happy about. So yeah, anyway, just wonder what your thoughts are. Keep up the good work. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Another case where I should have listened to I did this while we were
filming.
No,
it's so funny because you told me totally different.
I know,
that,
I did.
So. Yeah.
So Tuesday we're filming, and in between the breaks when Todd's like, "Oh, you don't need to film this," I was like, "Oh, I'm going to start getting stuff ready for Thursday." So let me apologize to Andy first. It is still. I'm not changing the title. I already did the intro. This is proper. I originally thought, because I read it, I didn't listen to it. I read it, and I thought it was about like what you do, Todd, getting your temps all ready. He's talking about literally letting it mash overnight, and then here's why I think. Well, first off, I'm so flustered because as I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, in real time, these people, Todd and James, are seeing my face freaking out because I was like, oh, I totally misunderstood that question. It's not about it. It's about doing a longer mash overnight. I have no experience with that. James, I would think he's right in that you're going to be getting that beta range of the sugars. And I mean, are you?
At 70 degrees Celsius, that's actually... 158 Fahrenheit. So it depends on what kind of equipment he has. If he's running a cooler, he did mention it was brewing a bag. Well, it's going to mash in the alpha range because it'll stay at that temp for an hour. It all depends on what kind of equipment he has. If he's running a stainless steel kettle, it's obviously going to bleed that temperature off a lot quicker than a cooler. So then he's still going to be starting in the alpha range. Depends on the infusion. The infusions, he's probably going to be, down there. I have to look at a converter, but in Fahrenheit's, let's say he's at a 158 and he's doing a 10-gallon batch and he puts his grains in and it drops, the temperature difference goes down to like 152. And then it holds there for, let's say 20 minutes and starts to fall. Then it's right. I mean, he's going to start off in the alpha and then he's going to gradually get into the beta. And, a lot of German brewers, they do the opposite. They slowly ramp up because they're not using modified grains. And they'll go from like the beta into the alpha and then the mash out and sparge. So be interesting to see. It'd be one of those things that'd be worth trying out, I think.
In a cooler where it would hold it longer, the temp, what is that time range where it stops mattering about it being in the 150 Fahrenheit-ish range? Like, is it like after an hour and a half, oh, the conversion's been done, and because it's sealed, you're probably not going to get any buggies coming in there for infection or anything like that?
He's going to get conversion, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
What about tannins, James? I don't know the answer, but what do you think?
I think that tannins, as long as you don't over sparge or any of that, I think the sugars are created. It's static. It's setting in there stable.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it'd probably be all right on tannins. I would say try it and see what happens. It's gonna, Todd, you're absolutely right. You're gonna get starch conversion on that. I'd be curious to see what types of starches. If you did it that way and you just had a huge big bodied beer, then maybe next time you add some amylase in there and get it to some simple sugars and get it super dry. That's interesting. That's something worth trying. You know what?
Yeah, we may try it.
Yeah, what we do at the Brautag is the day before we get our water collected because we use RO water, and Todd's the one that come up with this. Todd, tell him what you do.
So I bring it up to almost boiling, and then I wrap it in blankets. So I do it at night, before I go to bed. I usually go watch a little TV with my wife. I come back, I wrap it in blankets, put the lid on it, stumble back to my house and go to bed. And then I get up at early in the morning, like 6:30 usually, and I start brewing. And a lot of times it it could be maybe 130 degrees.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you lost a $5 bet on that.
I was just about to say I did, because he got it up to like 185, and I was like, "Is that enough? You want to go higher?" He goes, "No, it will not be below 130 in the morning." And I go, "That okay? You're an idiot. Let's do this." And we went to bed, and I woke up, and he woke up banging pans, basically like, wake up, it's time to brew. Because I accused him of like, you just started the brew day earlier to get the temperature, but it was like 147, or it was something stupid, like close to mash temp, where I was like, you son of a gun. It's almost
saves so much time. It really does.
It does.
So
he's made me a believer. That's what I do now.
It's brilliant. No, it is. It's smart. Brilliant. I don't want to use that.
Brilliant.
No,
I like that word. Say that again.
I take it back. So as I'm
that's all it takes to be brilliant. Wow.
I have a low bar, man. Low bar. So James, with Andy, as I'm understanding the question now, would you even is there a reason to bring it back to temp before taking the grains out, or the conversion's been done?
you want to heat it up to where you can extract more sugars. You're obviously going to get more sugars out of the grain bed when it's warmed up than if you leave it at room temp.
Now, would you?
Plus, a lot of people with brew in a bag, they'll rinse the grain bag.
There you go.
When they're collecting the wort, so you can rinse with 170 degree, or I don't even know what that would be in Celsius, guys. So forgive me on that. But yeah, I think warmer.
Well, that's what I was about to.
I think we're trying.
You read my mind.
Remember, we'd had some beers at HomebrewCon one year where they were doing overnight mashing at room temp. You remember that?
I remember the very low ABV one that did that. They did a cold mash, or they called it a cold mash.
Cold mash.
But I also remember it not tasting very good.
Really?
You don't remember that? I complained.
Well, it was club night, so there's not a whole lot I remember about that.
Good point. It was club night. And also, though, my favorite thing of club night and my least favorite thing is a beer's either really good or it's really bad. There's no middle ground on club night. They either hit it out of the park, or you have to be nice and be like, oh, yeah, that's interesting.
I'll still say the best beer I've ever had at club night was that brownie stout. Hands down.
Yeah, they listen to the show still. Oh gosh, I'm gonna. But I forget the name. East End Brewers, maybe, or East End, East Bay, East something. East.
It was delicious.
It was incredible. All their beer was incredible, and that was Rhode Island, wasn't it? Or was it not?
I think it was.
I think it was Rhode Island. Yeah, it was incredible. But anyways, back to Andy's question again. The question I fully understand and never had any issues with understanding. It's a thing of convenience, right? What he's trying to accomplish. So what are the worries you'd have doing that, if any, James? Or like you said, just try it?
You're just mashing. You're fine. Yeah.
Wonderful. That makes it easy.
I want to try it now. I like the idea.
So for you, because you are in the kettle, would you make any adjustments? Would you go, would you wrap it that much more with what you have, Todd?
Yeah. I mean, here's what we did with Todd's mash. Is we wrapped it in closed cell foam. The kind you would see, the kind of rubber insulation you would see on a trunk line. So we put a full jacket of that on his mash tun, so it stays stable a lot longer than mine.
I forgot it is already
in the brew
wrapped.
room over here, because it's just stainless steel. I at that time I actually have enough to do that one. I may do that because I need to brew another batch of beer.
You do?
Yeah, it'd be worth trying. It all depends on how fast it bleeds that temperature off, but Todd's right. It's gonna do some starch conversion before it even gets into out of even beta range, which is in the low 140, high 130 range.
And we could be working. We could be doing on a new process here. I just Googled step down mash brewing, and I don't see anything.
Step down. I like that. There's step up mash brewing, and we're going to do step down.
So maybe here's what we do on this, Todd, is we take the Brautag, get it up to mash temp, like go to, like he said, 70 degrees Celsius, 158 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's where I'm at whenever I infuse our grain bill into the mash. Do it, let it circulate real good for a few minutes, and just shut everything off and go home.
James, you were reading my mind, because that was going to be my follow-up question was, y'all always do recirculation during your mash. What would you would do it for how long on the Brautag before going home? Like
just enough to hydrate the grains real good and get a bed established. But you're going to come back in the morning and stir it up and start everything up again. So
Now, what is the $5 bet I could lose to you, Todd, about on your specific mash tun? What do you think if you go in, infuse your grains at 158? By the time, let's say we do that at like 8 p.m. and we get up at 5:45 because that's what you do on brew day. What do you think it would get down realistically in yours? You know your system. I'm assuming you might have an idea, and I'll bet you the over, and that'll be the first bet of 2023.
I mean, it gets to 130, 140. I don't.
You don't think
it depends on how long? It depends on how long you leave it.
So
yeah,
okay.
Here's the way I would do this, Josh. Is I'd come in that next morning, I would completely pull the liquid off the mash into the boil kettle, and then I would heat up my sparge water in the HLT, and then Todd does this kind of when he does a batch, he draws a lot of wort off the mash, and then pumps the sparge water into. Correct, Todd?
Yeah. So a lot of times what I'll do, instead of barely having it seep into the boil kettle and barely have it come in from the mash tun, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get a lot of it out until where it's almost touching the grain, and then I'll start putting the hot water on top.
Interesting. I like it.
So see, with an overnight mash, technically what you could do is you could just pull all that mash liquid of the wort out of the mash tun into the boil kettle, heat up your sparge water to like 170, 175 degrees to offset the temperature difference when it hits the grain bed, fill it up again, let it circulate a little while, and then that's your rinsed sugars and then pump it into the boil kettle.
Can we?
That's totally doable.
I suspect you're going to get really good efficiency doing that.
James, can you get that mash tun fitted in the brew room with the jacket thing? Even if you don't, we'll still work this out.
Yeah.
I just mean because when Todd's out of town is the next time I'm coming up for that whole week. What if that Thursday night or at the end of work day we do it, and I'll film that part, and then we'll film Friday and we'll brew that Friday.
Yeah, and that would be a great YouTube short video on that, and then we can give Andy the credit for the idea. And then we could start doing more videos like that from questions from Homebrew Happy Hour.
Exactly. But do you think, can we do that when not next week, but the week after? Okay, so whether or not you get that foam, because you don't know if you have enough for the mash tun in the brew room. But
I think I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you
I think I'll make that work.
That will help. But if you don't, it's still,
we're still going to do it.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. So you figure out I don't care if you brew between now and then, but you figure out what we're going to brew that day, and we will that Thursday evening get the mash going, shut it, wrap it up, turn it off, shut it down, come back. We're going to be in the office a little bit before 8 and pick up right where we left off. And I'll document.
Yeah, we'll just do a lager.
Perfect.
We'll just do a Pilsner.
Perfect. Awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Committed to it. Right on.
So we're talking about, what day is that again?
Would that be the 18th? Thursday the 18th, maybe?
Yep.
I'm going to be in Mossett Lawn then. I just, I'll be thinking about y'all.
Yeah, that's.
I had to pull up the itinerary.
Yeah.
I'll be in Mossett Lawn.
Actually, that would be, we do that on a Thursday or a Friday.
Well, we would start this experiment that Thursday evening, and we'd brew Friday.
So that's the 19th. So before we leave, we're going to have everything run up to temperature, get the grain infused
on the 18th.
Let it circulate for 5 minutes, shut everything off, leave.
Exactly.
And then that morning, turn everything on. I'm going to empty the mash into the boil kettle, have my sparge water heating up to about 175.
Yeah.
Fill up the mash tun again, circulate it a little bit, and then pump it into the boil kettle, and let's see where we're at on gravity and pitch the yeast.
I like it. Worst case, it's not. Worst case, we won't ever do it again. Best case, it's going to be a new way.
I think it's going to work.
I was going to say, best case, it's going to work, and maybe because especially James, you're such a company man. Todd appreciates it. I don't get it, but you're always like, when you brew on brew days, you always feel bad. You're like, oh, like you're always trying to find ways to shorten it up because you're like, oh, I got work. I got to do this or this or this. This might be a game changer in that regards. If the beer, like pressure brewing has become your new thing. Cause you're like, oh my God, I don't got to work.
Time.
It saves time and
it's a great product.
And it's a great.
So if we do it this way, we could be cutting 3 hours off the brew day.
Exactly. How that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, particularly you're going to do it before you leave, so you got all day to heat up the water while y'all are really, really, really working hard.
Yeah, with you gone. In fact, when Todd's gone, I work even harder.
As far as you know, we'll be working really hard.
Yeah, Todd. And speaking of that, man, I've got to hang up this Zoom call and get back to hard work without you around here, Todd. Even though I'm convinced you've installed a camera in here somewhere. But anyways, Andy. First, apologies that I totally misunderstood. Next time I'm going to listen. And I say that I've done this before on this show within the last 20 episodes where I tell y'all, oh, this question's this. And then we listen to it. And it's like, I got to stop reading the transcripts only. I got to listen. Did y'all notice too that there was a whole 30 seconds after the transcript ended of him talking? I would have never known that if I didn't. If I would have just listened.
No, I hadn't listened to the whole thing.
Yeah, the transcript ended when he's talking about you'll get those lower mash temps, but then there was like 30 seconds additional of him talking that I didn't have on here. So,
okay,
egg on my face. Anyways,
well,
Andy,
I just listened to it on the podcast. What the hell am I saying?
No, you're good. But with that being said, that was our final question, guys. I appreciate y'all's time. I know I've seen enough of you this week, Todd Burns. So I'm just gonna let y'all go. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to y'all soon.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or leave a voicemail, be our best friend at 325-305-6107. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a free pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Chub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.